She is, of course, the deciding vote in trillions of dollars of Joe Biden's spending. She bragged about being the last person in the room when major decisions were made. But we have to sort of step back and appreciate there is something pathological going on here. She has been in power for 3.5 years. And when asked about how she would be different, she goes and talks about Donald Trump. And when when it's pointed out, well, you've actually been in office for 3.5 years, she says, well, he's been talking about politics for 10 years. What is it in the mind of this person that can't just acknowledge that she has been in power for 3.5 years and bears some responsibility as the sitting vice president for the condition that the country is in? Now, she could do any number of things. She could actually say, well, I think that things are a little bit better than you're giving me credit for. Or she could say, well, this wasn't totally my fault. Instead, she pretends that Donald Trump bears the responsibility for problems that happened while she was the sitting vice president. She does that about the border. She does that about the affordability of groceries. She does that about the chaos on the world stage. I've never seen a person who's running for president as the sitting vice president who pretends that she has nothing to do with the condition of the country she's been governing.
My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
Interesting to that point, hasn't taken long for some of the lefties on Twitter to have an absolute meltdown. The fact that she went on Fox and actually had a hard interview, actually had to face some tough questions. Just looking on X, there are some tweets describing Bret as an insecure white boy misogynist just for daring to interrupt her. Of course, that was to be expected, right?
But again, this is this garbage, right? Where I'm simultaneously strong enough to be the President of the United States to stare down Vladimir Putin, President Xi and all the rest of it, right? Oh, but the Fox News guy interrupted me. Pick a lane, right? Now, again, there is a very fair conversation always about how the media treats you, what the question is, all the rest of it, right? But it's also about how you perform, okay? Now, we all saw
a huge part of it.
that when the media was unfair to Trump in the second debate, yes, 100% true, but he also underperformed, okay?
Yeah.
In this scenario, she had the opportunity to turn around and say, okay, Bret, I get it. I get what you're doing. I get why you're doing it. Can we just come down and have a conversation? And you go, okay, this person's taking control.
Yeah.
Instead, she didn't want to be there.
No.
And it was like she was forced to sit with some sort of a zoo animal she'd never met before. Like, clearly they'd never met each other, they don't know each other, and she made no effort to try to show herself to be a person you want to hear more from. And with 2 and a bit weeks to go, that's the only thing. She's got to win the election tonight.
She was still stumped on so many points, you know. She still couldn't answer the Joe Biden question. She's had months to prepare a good answer.
Just because you don't answer the question loudly doesn't mean you answered the question.
Yeah. Politicians anyway. But look, Kamala Harris, she's clearly losing support in the polls. And if you look at the betting odds, Polymarket had Donald Trump with an almost 20-point lead last night. So, Paul, what's your prediction? What's going to happen as a result or off the back of this interview?
Well, today, look at the timestamp, 2 and a bit weeks out. So don't go and take your clips and go, see, they were right, they were wrong. Trump's in front. Why? Real Clear Politics average, okay? If you have a look at the Real Clear Politics average, he's leading in 6 of the 7 swing states. Yep. The polling mistakes, not margin of error, mistakes at the last election had him they overcounted Biden anywhere between 2 and 4 points, depending on the state, depending on the poll. So if Trump in the averages is up slightly and they're still undercounting his vote, well, then Trump is way in front. That said, there are weird things that pop around. In fact, during the interview as it was going to air, Fox released their poll that nationally showed that Trump is leading nationally, but she's leading in the swing states, but they wouldn't say what swing states it was. So if you're forcing me, and when you look at me like that, you know you're going to get an answer out of me. It's Trump right now. Strange things can happen because don't forget as well, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, hundreds of thousands of people don't have a house. Right? So how are they going to vote? Where are they going to vote? Can they be bothered to vote? Who knows, right? But on the data that we have, and as you say, people putting down their own money, Trump's in the lead today.
Recent polling shows that Kamala Harris is starting to lose support from black men, and she's now creating an opportunity agenda for black men. That's a new policy pitch. And of course, we've heard a lecture from Barack Obama lecturing black men who might not want to vote for Kamala Harris, but these aren't great signs that she's in a good position. She's looking, I would say, pretty desperate at the moment.
So that thing that's on screen just there, right? I think it's point number 1 or 2, which is loans you don't have to pay back, right? Forgivable loans, they're called, of up to $20-something thousand. Last point, let's legalise weed. Now, what sort of a borderline racist pitch is that to any voters, let alone black male voters, to say, free money and get stoned? That is not serious. Now, again, will she win the vast majority of African American voters? Yes. Why? Because of the historic issues when it comes to the Democrats. But we see in this election young men, be it black, white, Hispanic or Asian, who may well be watching shows like this, listening to Rogan. They are completely independent people who are not going to do what their mummy or daddy or Uncle Barry is going to tell them what to do.
Yeah, and just finally, there are reports that there are tensions between Kamala Harris's team and also Joe Biden's team. Joe Biden really hasn't helped Kamala Harris's campaign, has he?
Well, no, because he has not allowed her to say whatever, in order to win, do whatever's necessary, including you can throw me, not all the way, but just maybe a pinky toe under the bus by turning around and saying, you know what, we haven't got it all right, but I've been a loyal number 2. When I'm number 1, we'll get those things right. So that on top of what you're starting to see, and there was an interesting story from NBC News over the weekend, which was that there's a little bit of fighting inside the campaign in Pennsylvania. Now, the expectation is that Pennsylvania is actually not going well for her, Michigan as well. However, could that be offset by North Carolina, Georgia? Guess what? We'll all find out together.
Paul Murray, it is so brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Love ya.